When the International Monetary Fund speaks, the world listens. Its pronouncements ripple through financial markets, boardrooms, and government offices across the globe. The IMF isn't just another international organization. It's a powerful voice that can sway the direction of economies and influence the fate of nations. Think of the IMF as the planet's financial watchdog, monitoring the economic health of its 190 member countries and offering policy advice to prevent crises. Its teams of economists and analysts pore over data, searching for warning signs that could threaten global stability. When they spot trouble, their recommendations can shape the policies of entire governments. For decades, the United States has been the IMF's heavyweight, holding the largest share of votes and shaping global economic policy. America's influence is woven into the very fabric of the IMF, reflecting its role as the architect of the post-war financial order. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency, and American leadership has long set the tone for international finance. The IMF's reports influence trillions in investments worldwide. Investors, central banks, and policymakers all pay close attention to its assessments, knowing that a single sentence in an IMF report can move markets or shift the priorities of entire countries. Its verdicts are often seen as a seal of approval or a red flag by the world's most powerful financial players. So, when the IMF issues a warning about the US, it's a big deal. Headlines flash, analysts scramble, and governments around the world take notice. The US isn't just another country, it's the anchor of the global financial system. Any sign of trouble there sends shockwaves far beyond its borders. It signals that the very foundation of the global economy may be shifting. If the US stumbles, the effects can be felt everywhere, from Asian factories to European banks to African commodity markets. The IMF's warnings are a reminder that no nation, not even the most powerful, is immune to risk. In today's interconnected world, economic tremors in America can quickly become global earthquakes. The IMF's verdict is a signal to other countries to brace themselves, review their own vulnerabilities, and prepare for possible aftershocks. The IMF's perspective is especially important as a counterweight to rising powers like China, offering a transparent alternative to opaque lending. As China expands its influence through initiatives like the Belt and Road, the IMF's role as an impartial referee becomes even more crucial for countries seeking guidance and stability. When the IMF sounds the alarm about the US, it's a pivotal moment, suggesting the system's anchor might be dragging. It's a call for policymakers to act, for investors to reassess, and for the world to pay attention to risks that could reshape the economic landscape. Its latest reports aren't just projections. They're a direct commentary on American leadership and the risks brewing within the world's largest economy. The IMF's words can spark debate in Congress, influence presidential decisions, and even affect the confidence of everyday Americans. The verdict matters because it comes from the very institution designed to uphold the system the US helped build, and its warnings hint at a future where the old rules may no longer apply. As the world changes, the IMF's judgment on America is more than just analysis. It's a signal that the global order itself could be entering uncharted territory. The IMF's message is clear: the United States is losing its grip on economic stability. The fund points to soaring government debt and unpredictable trade policies as major risks. America's actions are now a primary source of global uncertainty. The latest IMF report highlights how persistent US trade deficits and aggressive tariffs are straining relationships with allies. When the world's largest economy acts erratically, every nation is forced to react, often defensively. The US is no longer seen as a reliable anchor, but as a source of volatility. The IMF warns that unsustainable fiscal policy and aggressive trade stances could undermine confidence in US assets and the dollar itself. The nation that wrote the rulebook for global finance is now one of its most unpredictable players. The Trump administration's aggressive use of tariffs has sent shockwaves through the global economy, upending decades of established trade norms. What began as a targeted campaign against China has rapidly expanded, with the US now wielding tariffs as a primary tool of economic statecraft. These new trade barriers have redrawn the global economic map, forcing countries and corporations alike to rethink their strategies. The world's major trade routes are being rerouted, and the once predictable flow of goods is now subject to sudden disruption. In 2025, tariffs have expanded beyond China to hit the European Union and others, using America's vast consumer market as leverage. This has created a climate of uncertainty, with businesses and governments scrambling to adapt to the new rules of engagement. The The EU, under immense pressure, accepted a deal to avoid a full-blown trade war, but the truce is fragile, and trust between the two sides is at an all-time low. Many fear that a single misstep could reignite tensions and trigger a new round of tariffs. Meanwhile, other nations like Indonesia are racing to sign new trade agreements, hedging against US unpredictability and seeking to secure their own economic futures. These countries are eager to diversify their partnerships and reduce their reliance on any single market. This climate of uncertainty is forcing businesses to rethink supply chains and investment plans. Companies are shifting production, rerouting shipments, and investing in new markets to minimize risk and maintain stability in a volatile environment. The International Monetary Fund warns that this constant threat of new tariffs and trade barriers is a major drag on global growth, stifling investment and undermining confidence in the world economy. By bypassing the World Trade Organization, the US signals it no longer feels bound by global rules, raising questions about the future of international cooperation and the stability of the trading system. The world's scramble to build new alliances and trade blocs shows that many are preparing for a future where the US is an unpredictable player, not the umpire. As nations adapt, the global order is being reshaped before our eyes, with long-term consequences for everyone. The IMF's warnings paint a stark picture of the risks in this new era of economic confrontation. As global tensions rise and countries turn inward, the foundations of international trade and cooperation are being tested like never before. The world economy, once built on the promise of open markets and shared prosperity, now faces a period of deep uncertainty and fragmentation. The most immediate danger is a full-blown trade war, which could erupt as nations impose tariffs and barriers in a bid to protect their own interests. This would mean higher prices for everyday goods, disrupted supply chains that businesses rely on, and job losses that ripple through communities. Consumers would feel the pinch at the checkout, while companies struggle to adapt to a rapidly changing landscape. Uncertainty is pervasive. Businesses hesitate to invest, fearing sudden policy shifts. When leaders and executives can't predict what tomorrow will bring, they hold back on hiring, expansion, and innovation. This climate of doubt stifles growth and undermines confidence in the future. This hesitation can trigger the very downturn everyone fears. As investment slows and consumer confidence wanes, the risk of recession grows. Small businesses, often the backbone of local economies, are especially vulnerable to these shocks. Heightened uncertainty tightens financial conditions, making borrowing harder and strangling growth. Banks become more cautious, loans dry up, and families find it harder to make ends meet. The effects are felt not just on Wall Street but on Main Street as well. International cooperation on issues like climate change and financial regulation is eroding. As trust between nations fades, it becomes harder to tackle global challenges that require collective action. The world risks losing decades of progress on shared goals. The IMF's influence is weakened when its most powerful member flouts the rules. Without strong leadership and respect for international norms, the global financial system becomes more fragile and unpredictable. Aggressive US trade actions and soaring debt create a precarious situation. As America's fiscal position worsens, the world watches closely, aware that instability in the US can quickly spread across borders. If investors lose confidence in US policy, interest rates could spike and the dollar could fall, shaking the global system. Financial markets are sensitive to even small signals of trouble, and panic can spread rapidly in today's interconnected world. The risk of the US dollar losing its central role is distant, but growing with every new tariff and trillion in debt. If the world's trust in the dollar erodes, the consequences could be profound, reshaping the global economy for years to come. For President Trump, disruption is the strategy, not a side effect. The administration sees persistent trade deficits as proof the system is rigged against the US. Tariffs and confrontation are meant to shock the system and rewrite the rules in America's favor. This clashes with the IMF's vision of cooperation and predictability. The White House views uncertainty as a negotiating tool, not a threat. America First means using every tool, including the IMF, to push a national agenda. Trump's gambles short-term pain for long-term gains and a revitalized industrial base. The president's response to the IMF is defiance, not concern, asserting a new unilateral power. For most people, the IMF and trade policy seem distant, but the impact is real. Tariffs make imported goods more expensive, raising prices on everything from cars to clothes. US companies relying on foreign components may face higher costs, risking jobs. Retaliatory tariffs hurt American exporters, farmers and tech firms alike. Economic uncertainty slows hiring and wage growth, making it harder for families to get ahead. Stock market volatility can shrink retirement savings. If debt and trade chaos push up interest rates, borrowing for homes or cars gets pricier. What starts as a policy in Washington can mean higher bills in Ohio. The global chessboard of economics hits home at the kitchen table. The IMF's concerns point to a fundamental shift in America's global role. For decades, U.S. leadership was built on reliability and shared rules. Now, unilateral actions are eroding that foundation. Other nations are forging new trade deals, building a world less reliant on the U.S. America's ability to dictate terms and rally consensus is shrinking. The damage to American soft power and trust is immense. Allies are less willing to cooperate on global issues when targeted by U.S. policies. This could be remembered as the moment the U.S. gave up its unique leadership position. By choosing confrontation over cooperation, the U.S. risks a more fragmented, contentious world. The IMF's statements make one thing clear: the global economy is in uncharted territory. The era of stable, American-led trade rules is over, for now. The next months will reveal if compromise is possible or if conflict deepens. Watch how the EU and China respond. Their choices will shape the new order. For Americans, inflation, job trends, and interest rates are the key signals to watch. Any sustained negative movement could mean the IMF's warnings are coming true. The only certainty is uncertainty. Everyone must learn to navigate this unpredictable new world. The old economic map is gone. The future is being drawn in real time.